Hey, what's up? John Sonmez from SimpleProgrammer.com. And I have a question about the next opportunity in software development. When will it appear? So this question is from David, and he says, I just saw your video on will developer jobs disappear? You can check out the video he's talking about here. In which you said that some people miss the opportunity on WordPress plugins and Apple apps. My question is, how do we know if and when the next opportunity is? Additional info, I'm 59 and can't afford to waste time missing opportunities or going in the wrong direction. Gosh, this is such a hard one to answer. I'm actually reading a book right now. I haven't actually finished the book. I'll do a review when I'm done. It's called, let me think about this for a second. Inevitable. You can check out the book here, okay? Now, in this book, he actually addresses this question. It's kind of interesting because he talks about how, like, you know, there was essentially the gold strike for when the web first came on, right? And you had the .coms, right? And you know, he has a story where he says he talked to ABC and he said, you need to get one of your nerd guys in the IT or whatever downstairs to go and register abc.com because the web, like, you want to get that, right? And it was actually free to register domains at that time. And he said he checked back a couple of weeks later and abc.com had not registered, or ABC had not registered abc.com. And he was saying how so many developers are like, oh, I wish I could be back in that time when you could just put up a web app or put up a storefront and sell something online, or back when YouTube first started. Man, you know how easy it would be to grow an audience, to grow a channel then. But he says that now is the best time, that people are going to look back today and say, oh, it would have been so great to be a web developer or to be a developer in 2016. There was so much opportunity there, right? And so I think his point really is that there's always that. We're always going to have that. We just don't know where those things are. But there's some ways that we can find it and some indications of where things are going to go. So one thing that I would say about this is that you have to look for things that are high barrier to entry. Okay, and well, before we get into that, well, yeah, so let's talk about how that applies backwards in time, right? So everyone says, oh, I would love to be on the internet, and I would have loved to have been creating an application or being a developer in like 1980 or 1990, you know, before everyone got all the domain names and made SaaS apps and sold stuff, and I could have made so much money. Yes, true. You were around, maybe, some of you. But guess what? Guess what the web was like in 1980, or let's say 1990, because in 1980 it was too infantile. But let's say 1990. There's definitely some opportunity there, right? The web was like, you didn't have tools, like creating a web application. Because I remember, heck, I was creating web applications way back when I was like 10 years old. For like, I was doing it for fun or for the military. I had like a little internship job, and I was hand coding HTML using Hotdog, like or using Notepad, right? And there weren't tools for doing this or for easily deploying this. We had CGI applications, and we wrote Perl scripts to handle payments for PayPal and stuff like that. It wasn't easy. Like it wasn't like you can do now, where you can buy a subscription to Shopify and you can sell whatever you want online, right? And you have drop shippers and all this. So creating that application, there was high barriers to entry. Same thing, let's say YouTube, right? A lot of YouTubers today say, oh shit, if I could have been a YouTuber, like when YouTube first came out, I don't even know when that was, but even like, 10 years ago, it would have been so awesome. I should have done that. Or I could have been PewDiePie. The thing is, the barrier to entry was so high, right? Like shooting video, now we all have, in our pockets, we've got 1080, we can shoot 4K video. It's crazy, right? And sound and everything. And we can upload it, we've got the bandwidth to do that. But back then, when YouTube first came out, it was hard. It was really hard. There was a high barrier to entry. So, same thing with the App Store, right? When Apple first opened the App Store, it wasn't easy to develop iOS apps. There weren't tutorials. No one taught you how to do it. There weren't frameworks and tools. You had to go through the cryptic Apple developer stuff. And it was also a gamble. You didn't even know if it was going to work. It wasn't popular, right? Same thing when Android first came out there. So all of these opportunities, they have one thing in common, which was that there was a high barrier to entry. Same thing with WordPress plugins, right? And also it was an unknown, uncharted territory. No one knew whether it was going to be popular or not. So to answer your question, there's plenty of opportunities right now. I mean, some people say VR is the space. And I know a guy right now that is making a bunch of VR games, and he's making a fortune making VR games because he's jumping on that space, and it's hard to get into it right now, and he's figured it out. So he's overcome that. Not everyone can develop VR stuff. He's overcome that barrier of entry. He's also working on this unproven technology at this point, and if it skyrockets, he's going to do really well. It could fail, and he could have wasted some time. I wouldn't call it a waste of time, but if you're looking for that next big thing, look for the things that are high barrier to entry and that are not popular right now but have a chance, and put a horse in this game, put a horse in this race, put a horse in this race, put a horse in this race, and see which one wins. That's the best bet that I can give you, and be extremely prolific. But if I could predict the future, if I knew where that was, that's what I would be doing right now. Sometimes though, I will say that there is a benefit in this technology space to being not the first to market, but being second to market. Microsoft has completely developed their strategy on not being first to market. What they do is they let their competitors make stuff, okay, and then they figure out a way to improve it and make it much better, and then they either buy out their competitors, or they ship the version. And that didn't work out for them with the phones, granted. But it did work out with a lot of things that they've done, a lot of technologies that they've developed. And we'll see what actually happens with the phones with Microsoft, because they're not done yet. There's still some opportunity there. I think we'll see some surprising things. But my point is this: if you're looking right now to find out what the next big thing is, pick something that has a high barrier to entry, that has a good chance of taking off, and start being prolific on it. That's one option. Or the second option is to pick something that's already somewhat successful or popular, right? So for example, I still did well blogging and as a YouTuber, even though I came into the game late, technically late, because I was extremely prolific on the platform and I dedicated the time. If I had been early, it would have taken less effort to make as much traction, but I was able to bet on a sure thing by making up for it, by doing hard work and being more prolific. So you kind of got one of those two tracks: is you can be on the bleeding edge and do the high barrier to entry thing, or you can kind of follow the thing that you know is already working, that you kind of already missed the gold rush on it, but there's still profits to be mined there, right? The people that got into Bitcoin, I mean, I could throw examples out all day long. The people who first were mining Bitcoin, they could make a fortune. But the people who came along later and bought the GPU setups and started their mining operations just a little bit later, they also did really, really well. And now if you try to come into it now, it's almost too late. But even there's still probably some opportunity. You just got to figure out what the angle is and how things are going to change. So I definitely recommend check out that book. Like I said, it's called Inevitable. That'll give you some ideas. But it's hard. If you could predict it, if you can predict where the gold rush is, then that's amazing. But I guarantee you, wherever the next gold rush is, it's a place where there's an extremely high barrier to entry. That's the only hint I could give you at that. If I knew where it was, I would be working on that right now. I don't think it's Snapchat. I'll give you that. All right. I'll talk to you next time. And before I forget, click that subscribe button, because you don't want to miss. In case I do figure it out, I'll be revealing it on this channel. So you better subscribe so I can tell you where that next gold rush is. All right, I'll talk to you next time. Take care.